This video was lovingly cultivated to fruition with unconditional love and support from our sweet darling friends at Ink and Lyre, but more on that in a moment. Hello, and welcome to the Floss Hour here at Rip Daddy's Swagger Shop. I'm your hype MC, Dave Makes Noises. Today we're asking the D&D players of MrRipper, what was your biggest in-character flex? I'll start off. Here's the background. Currently playing a homebrew Planeshopper campaign, 5th edition. My human hexblade / bladeslinger, Mayfly, and the dragonborn sorcerer had been separated from the party through a teleportation mishap and ended up at Citadel of 1,000 Pearls along with a friendly NPC who, due to the same mishap, needed urgent medical care. So we managed to make our way to the infirmary and are brought before the Murid that runs it. Mayfly makes a flowery introduction with a list of titles that establishes him as worthy of interest but already spoken for. The sorcerer plays his instrument and rolls unfortunately high. Now, for the uninitiated, genies obtain status by collecting rare valuables. Murids in particular specialize in valuable and exotic slaves. The infirmary keeper's interest is piqued by the performance, and once it slips out that the sorcerer caused the mishap, he starts looking at the sorcerer the way a comic collector looks at a mint condition copy of Action Comics #1. Some extra background. Early in the campaign, due to shenanigans, we came into possession of an aboleth. So Mayfly, noting the Murid's greedy look, pulls the biggest flex I've pulled and straight up asks the Murid, "Do you know of anyone who has an aboleth?" Edit for quick epilogue. Mayfly traded the aboleth to the Murid for hospitality, medical care, and access to the library, along with not becoming Murid slaves. And with that, what was your biggest in-character flex? This video was made possible with loving tender support from our sweet friends over at Ink and Lyre. I am pleased to hopefully be the first to introduce you to Stargazer's Guide to Aroria. Stargazer's Guide is an original campaign setting coming soon for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition that offers some really brilliant and inspiring new races, mechanics, subclasses, and an already stunningly fleshed out world and lore. In Stargazer's Guide to Aroria, you'll find a mystifying original pantheon, a beautiful all-new world to explore, incredible original monsters, subclasses, races, factions, leaders, and of course, just mind-blowing art all across the board. I'm not even kidding you. I went over to Ink and Lyre's website and bought a t-shirt full price. They definitely have no idea that it was I who bought the shirt, but I saw the shirt and I wanted it, nay, needed it, and I bought it, and I regret nothing. And I would say that the art is the cherry on top, but really I think this looks to be something far greater than the sum of its parts. What impresses me the most so far based on the playtest material I've read over is the stars system. The signs in the sky at your character's birth affect key details of your overall gameplay experience, and the ruler of your sign dictates which school of magic you are bound to, providing both benefits and detriments. Many adventurers may outright reject their ruler, looking instead to their sign's heir for inspiration. Now, I know what you're thinking. Dave, you silver-tongued rogue, you, where might I procure this majestic tome immediately? To which I respond, be patient, my sweet, sweet summer child. For the Stargazer's Guide to Aroria Kickstarter campaign literally started today. It would mean the world to all of us here at Rip Daddy's house if you could go shoot them a follow over on Kickstarter and support the project. I've already followed, I can't wait. The final project will be over 200 pages and feature a new archetype for every class in 5th edition, as well as over a dozen exciting cities and locations to explore. The link is below in the description, and I hope that you all go show these creative geniuses some love, and as always, tell them Rip Daddy sent you. Thank you again to Ink and Lyre for sponsoring today's video. We are so excited to see what happens with Stargazer's Guide to Aroria. I suspect it's going to be a stunning world to explore in, and with that, we return to the stories. Playing a paladin, Oath of Vengeance, we're fighting underwater when a tiger shark tries to come out of the darkness at me. Nat 20 to hit. Blinding Smite plus improved Divine Smite plus Spear, so 8d8 plus 2d6, and rolled near max damage. Party Wizard then turns me into a killer whale. There's always a bigger fish. Winky face. I made a school of magic in my game called Animancy. It was mostly there for lore, no real homebrew spells or anything, but the idea was it was all about the soul. One guy got magic crystals infused with what was basically raw energy and had an Animancer infuse their gauntlet with it so he could punch things in the soul. Several sessions later, the big bad of the campaign was revealed to be the literal goddess of death. She begins to dump lore and exposition as villains often do. As a god, she felt there was nothing to fear from any mortal, no matter their power. The ranger politely waited until everyone else's questions had been answered, cleared his throat, and declared that he'd like to punch the goddess of death in the soul. He crit. She screamed in shock and pain, then retaliated by warping the ranger 500 feet straight up. He calmly waited for the fall damage, reminding me that, as a half-orc, he knew he could just nope out of death once a day. I was a dwarven barbarian. My friend the halfling Rogue received a massage from a female NPC to meet her in her room to advance the story for some reason. The Rogue wanted relations with said NPC. So he got us all blackout drunk at the bar so he would be alone with the NPC later that night. The DM is setting the scene, saying a storm is picking up. The patter of rain is almost deafening. You also hear clasps of rolling thunder. Me being my idiot self, I stick my head out of the window and tell the gods to shut up so I can get a good night's rest. The DM, confused, told me to roll intimidation, and as all things go, I rolled a nat 20. So the gods listened and cleared the night up so my drunk self could go to bed. Years later, and the tales of Shortbeard the Terrible are still told to their children. Being the first person in the entire world to cast a 10th level spell. If you're into the whole context thing, here you go. Our DM has been building his homebrew world since the day the Player's Handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide were released for 5th edition. So it was a shock to us all when at the end of one of the many interconnected campaigns run in this world, a wish was used that had massive unintended consequences. So massive, in fact, that an entirely new timeline was created. So every campaign that had been run up to this point just hasn't happened, and the DM soft resets his entire world. This would probably piss a lot of people off, but all of us, including the DM, were ecstatic and hyped for it, given the context, but that's not for this story. So in our current campaign, the first one being run in this new timeline, we come across a being that persisted through the end of the old timeline and into the new one. It was one of our reoccurring villains, but it really just wanted to return home to its own timeline. So, Jay, the 2nd level warlock, 17th level bard that's been dabbling in chaos magic, consulting with eldritch beings, and has visited Limbo on multiple occasions, begins work on a plan to get this thing out of our hair for good. Working with said eldritch beings and gathering the right materials from different planes, casts a 10th level Time Gate spell to single-handedly get rid of our most annoying and probably strongest reoccurring villain. Not sure which of these is my best flex. Walking into battle against the big bad evil guy's final lieutenant and about 200-ish zombies, as the DM describes the field being overrun with zombies, I interrupt him and say, "I cast Meteor Swarm." DM goes, "Well, so much for the zombies, now it's just the lieutenant." The time when my polite, quiet life domain cleric was the only member of the party, both PCs and NPCs, on the field to pass the wisdom save to withstand the BBEG's spell to force everyone prone. She just stood there listening to him while he monologued, looking at him like I bow to no one but my goddess. Playing a rogue and rolling a 31 for sleight of hand to pickpocket random people while walking through a tavern and ending up with 40 gold in some dude's pants. Same campaign, rolled a nat 20 for a 32 total stealth to stand behind a guy for about 15 minutes watching, while he drew pictures of some young women we had rescued from sex traffickers. Apparently the guy was trying to recover them. He did not. He died. He died a lot. And then we killed all his friends in a combat where the 4 of us in the party rolled 7 crits in 2 rounds, killed 11 enemies, and were never touched. Whole party flex. Yes, sensitive topic, but everyone in that group were adults and had dealt with related issues either directly or indirectly in the past, so we treated it with the care it deserved. And then we killed everyone involved, and the dice gods apparently were in agreement. 1v1ing a giant skeleton, which the DM had upscaled with additional HP and AC as it was meant to be a mini-boss for the entire party of 8 people to fight against. With a level 4 paladin because I accidentally got trapped in a room with it and the only way out was the lever the skeleton was guarding. Nailing a 600-foot longbow shot with my level 0 character who hadn't officially picked a class yet to kill an enemy captain's horse, which fell on him and broke his leg, rendering him unable to escape death at the hands of our army. Not bad for a session 0, lol. Single-handedly disabling the entire security system of a bank during a bank heist by posing as a security consultant and backdooring into their systems to check for vulnerabilities, while rolling 30s and 40s for computer use checks the entire time because I had plus 24 to the skill. This was a D20 modern Halo-themed campaign. Same campaign, in the first session I hacked into another PC's tablet while she was searching for information about me because she thought I was a fraud, which I was, but they didn't need to know that. While getting a bullet wound patched up in one shoulder, so I only had one hand free. I even used the opportunity opportunity to flirt with the other PC a bit, sending a message to their tablet saying, "You're feisty. I like feisty girls." And then, "If I can do this with one hand, imagine what I can do with two, LOL. This happened all the way back in 2018 and is one of my favorite stories. Note it has some homebrew, but the only homebrew is just a ton more spells, weapons, and a couple races. I had a lawful evil gnome wizard character who was an orphan as a kid and was an absolute beast at pyromancies. A tiefling adopted him and he grew up learning the infernal language, which is basically where this entire flex starts off at, infernal. His backstory is large, so I won't bore you with it. The group was a Goliath barbarian who we used as a horse, a halfling cleric, a dwarven fighter, and me, mage gnome. We were the not right size soldiers for hire. The campaign was about several other countries invading the one we are in because of some kind of magical artifact that would apparently let even a 3-man guard patrol be more powerful than 1,000 soldiers. So every nation wanted it so that their army could be the big strong. Campaign was meant to be us picking an invading country to help, since obviously we couldn't help defend against the equivalent of what Napoleon had to deal with. The defending country was a magical rainforest, one which mainly built stuff out of woods stronger than rock. Anyways, at some point the party comes across a large wooden city that, unknown to us, had no tiefling, no succubus, and nothing that doesn't look incredibly similar to humans. Stuff like kobolds and lizard folk, for example, are on this list too. Too lazy to add basically every race. Rule, and guards would immediately attack and murder them if found anywhere near the city. Group gets a quest to go invade an encampment of bandits. We get there and it's a 20-man camp. I, the dwarf, heads in first and gets caught by a lamia, a succubus, and a tiefling. All female and all incredibly afraid, since just a mile away, there's a large fascist city. Before he could get attacked, he begins to talk in Infernal because he doesn't want everyone else to understand. Basically, he was just complimenting the 3 people and being horny. You get the idea. Trusting him, they let him in and explained that he and the group were not sent to kill bandits, but instead to attack mere civilians. Angry, he leaves and tells the rest of the group, and they go back to the city. Here's where the fun begins. Me, I want to use a message spell on the cleric to telephone to his god, to ask for forgiveness for what I'm about to do. DM, okay, but you're gonna have to roll a me, nat 20. DM describes how I, the small gnome, managed to have a conversation with a fucking god and get confirmation to do whatever heinous act I'm gonna do. Afterwards, I direct everyone to stay outside and only I go in. Me, I wish to use a meteor sprinkle, a homebrew spell that summons 6 small flaming rocks from the sky to pelt stuff. The downside is that it's hard to control where they hit, on 3 guard towers, the city hall, the guard barracks, and lastly on the largest housing district to start a wildfire. I proceed to go on a monologue on how this city shall not stand the mighty force of me. I also ask if I can do a cool hand thing where both my hands light on fire for pure badass aesthetic. DM allows. DM, you will need to roll a nat 20 to hit all the places. 5 rocks, so every 4 counts as a direct hit. Me, casually rolls another nat 20. Nat 20! DM, surprised but not planning to argue, describes the brutal death of several dozen guards as I light their towers and barracks on fire. Plus I managed to kill whoever owns this city with the city hall burning down. The remaining guards come over, but only see a small gnome with 2 of his hands on fire. Meanwhile, an entire neighborhood is burning to the ground, probably killing hundreds of citizens. The guards retreat/beg for mercy since one man literally just sent their city burning to the ground. After all of that, we head back to the camp and get everyone to come back to the city. Now all that remains is a couple dozen fearful survivors and a ton of ash. I get the idea to turn this into our permanent camp after repairing some of it. Slowly, the dead city goes from camp to reborn town, which in and of itself has new guards and citizens being led by my gnome. Remember the campaign idea with invading nations? Well, my gnome manages to get the local cities and government to band together to fight back. We somehow win, and the campaign ends with my gnome being a leader of a freedom-first democracy. This is my favorite flex, being a politician in a country after I single-handedly destroy one of its biggest cities. Edit. Reading other stories, I realized I might have misinterpreted the title, but I'm keeping this here nonetheless. Also fixing a small thing I accidentally put because I can't count. Hello and thank you for watching until the end. I hope you found some drip to flex in your next D&D game. Once again, I'd just like to extend a warm thanks to our sweet friends over at Ink and Lyre for sponsoring this video. We're super excited to check out Stargazer's Guide to Aroria from playtest to final release. If you're interested in an astrologically charged campaign setting, I'd highly recommend checking out their Kickstarter. If you've ever flexed impossibly hard in a D&D game, we want to know about it in the comments section below. If you've got another story you'd like to share with the community, please join us over on our official subreddit, r/MrRipper, where we cultivate a vast cornucopia of stories just like these ones for videos just like this one. If you're a DM or a player looking for a group or some new friends, you may find that which you seek over at Mr. Ripper's Group Finder Discord server. I hope that you make time this week to mindfully revel in the divinity of the spark of conscious beingness that propels your meat vessel through this incarnation. If you love me and want to make my day, come by and say hello sometime on my Twitch channel, www.twitch.tv/DaveMakesNoises. You can also find me at Dave Makes Noises all across the web. We're so glad you've joined us today. Thank you again for watching. Please sub for Nat 20s. Ring the bell if you're an early bird that gets the worm. We love you here at Rip Daddy's house, and we'll see you soon.